Miss Wagers, I don't understand. Why does John Henry's heart have to burst? I feel like he's such a good guy. Like, it's not fair. Our fourth graders are here. I have to go. Fourth graders, I don't know about you, but that ending was a lot to take in. I wasn't expecting it. Mrs. Lawson here. I am really excited you're here today to read with me, but I am still kind of sad that John Henry's heart burst. Like, what? So today we're going to keep reading and figure out what happens. How does this all end? So let me share my screen with you and we will go ahead and get started. So as I already said, this is the last day of John Henry. And today we are learning to analyze characters in a story so that we can better understand what we read and identify related themes. So we've been working on both of those things, theme and character. So you will know you are successful today when you can define character, figure out who the characters are in the story, identify details that show how a character is extraordinary, and then explain how these details affect my understanding of the text. So our foundational skill today is something a little different. We are going to try and identify the meaning of unknown words. So I know there are times when Miss Lawson is reading a story and sometimes I don't even know how to say a word. So let's show this sentence and figure out, how do we say this word? Inside the dark tunnel, where the yellow dust and heat were so thick that most men would have been. So I'm going to stop. If I don't know it, I might try and sound it out. So the first thing we need to do to figure out the meaning is try and sound the word out. So I'm going to try. I know SM is kind of like smile, right? So it's sm. Oh, I know this word. That's other. So sm, other, smothered. Oh, so the word is smothered. I chunked up my word and I found pieces that I already knew. And it says, the men would have been smothered. John Henry hammered faster and faster. So once you sound it out, then Miss Lawson likes to go back and look for clues in the sentence that tell me, what in the world does this word mean? So when I look back, I notice that this dust is really thick. So if it's thick, it smothers you. It might be something that is heavy and kind of covers you maybe. Then if you're still not sure, the next thing we would do is go to the dictionary. So I would go to dictionary.com since I have my computer, and I would type in the word smothered. And as I'm looking it up, we'll figure out what it means. So it will even tell you when you look it up in the dictionary, it'll say it for you. And it'll say smothered. And then down here it says to stifle or suffocate. So it actually means he can't breathe, like he's suffocating, and it's covering him up. So I can now go back and put in that this word actually means, it means to cover or to suffocate actually. So that would be the meaning. So now let's try another one. So we're going to keep identifying those unknown words. The teacher didn't know whose test he received because the student had omitted his or her name. And Miss Lawson took away the first step because I already knew this word so I'm sorry about that. So we should have sounded it out. And if you noticed, MIT is mit. So I could have used that chunk to help me sound it out. Omitted. Omitted. Then we're going to look for clues that help us figure out what this means. Do you see any clues? Ah, good job. I noticed that the teacher didn't know whose test it was. So is their name on it? No, probably not, right? That's when I don't know whose test it is. It's if they don't put their name on it. So if it's omitted, it might mean they didn't put it on there. So now let's go to the dictionary just to double check our work. See if we got the right answer. So I'm going to put omit. See if we got the right answer here. It says, we got it right. It means to leave it out. Good job, fourth graders. I knew you could do it. All right, so this time for your foundational skill today, you're going to practice sounding out the unknown word. Then you're going to look for the context clues to find the meaning of the word. Last, you're going to verify, which is another word for you're going to check the meaning using dictionary.com. So there's two different sentences, and I don't want to read them to you because you're going to try and sound those words out and figure it out all on your own because you guys are so smart and you can do this. Now, vocabulary, Miss Lawson's favorite. You knew it. So see if you can use that skill we just learned to sound out this word. Yeah, that CL makes the clutched. So it's clutch. I added an ED for some reason because down in the sentence it's clutched. So the word is clutch. And if you're clutching something, it looks like he's holding that pretty tight. But it says down here from the story, but his hand still clutched one of his mighty hammers. What could that word mean, fourth graders? Guys, you are amazing. He's grasping it tightly. He's holding it tightly. Y'all knew it. Good job. What about this one? It might have a piece of a word you already know. What was that? Yeah, it is flagged. So it's not what you think, actually. It says down here, folks stood in the rain and flagged the westbound train. Huh, it's what this lady's doing. You have a guess? What could it be? Good job. I heard some of you say it. It is to signal. So they're like, hey, they're flagging it. Come over here. Like in the classroom, I know some kids are flagging me to come over and help them with something, right? So you're signaling someone or something to stop. Maybe come over and see ya. All right, now we're going to get into this story. Now, I'm looking at this and it makes me want to think, how is this competition going to end? I see John Henry with his two hammers. I see that machine in the background. How do we think this story is going to end, fourth graders? All right, let's see if you're right. Make that prediction, lock it in, write it down. Good readers are always making that prediction. Okay. When John Henry fell, it sounded like an earthquake. So it was like a boom, super loud. I've never been in an earthquake, but I feel like it'd be so loud, right? There was a terrible silence inside the mountain. Lucy stood still as stone, for she knew what had happened. When Jimmy and little Bill brought him out of the tunnel, John Henry's blood ran red over the ground, but his hand still clutched one of his mighty hammers. I've beat them, he gasped. Now I'm dying. Don't go, John Henry, Lucy begged. Bring me a cool drink of water, honey, he said. I'm about to cry. Then he took his last breath. Lucy fell down on her knees and sobbed. Lord, this was a good man, she said. They carried John Henry down from the mountain. They carried him to the river and buried him in the sand near the cabin where he was born. Folks stood in the rain and flagged the westbound train headed for John Henry's grave. And word spread quickly from the land. John Henry's never coming back. Soon the steam drill and other new machines took over the work of the steel driving men. Little Bill, Jimmy, and others like them left their families and wandered north and west looking for work. As they walked the hot, dusty roads, they took the only jobs that they could find. They picked cotton and dug ditches, but often, while they worked, they sang about John Henry. John Henry told his friends, "A man ain't nothing but a man. Before I'll be beat by that big steam drill, I'll die with my hammer in my hand. I'll die with my hammer in my hand." Obviously, Miss Lawson is just singing it however she thinks it goes. I'm not sure how they sang it, but I'm sure we could look that up. So, guys, what were the consequences of the contest between John Henry and the steam drill? What happened at the end? You guys already know. I don't even need to talk about it. We know how it ended. We just read about it. Man. So today, we're analyzing the characters. So it says authors exaggerate the traits or actions of main characters in tall tales. So if they exaggerate, they make it a big deal to make them and their deeds more noteworthy, to make them stick out. So readers can use details to explain how a character is extraordinary or memorable. So in this story, we specifically focused on John Henry and how amazing he was. So let's look back at the top of the page we just read and see how the author describes John Henry's death. So we're going to look for details that show that John Henry was extraordinary, right? That he was way more than ordinary. So even though he died, he did show us that in this top of the page. So I want you to pause this video, guys, and make this chart with me because it's going to be something you're going to go back to later on in lessons to help you when we're focusing on character. So pause that video. Talking to you, fourth graders. Get this web drawn. All right, I know you did it, so let's get to it. Let's look at this page. So it says, when John Henry fell, it sounded like an earthquake, right? And Miss Lawson even described it. I couldn't read it without thinking, man, I haven't been in an earthquake, but I feel like I knew how it would sound. So that is the first thing that sticks out to me that made it sound extraordinary, right? Because when I fall to the ground, I hope it doesn't sound like an earthquake. I hope I don't make that much noise. So when he died, he's a good man, right? So we're in the middle, it says John Henry dies a good man. Then over here, how they made it exaggerated, how they made it over the top, was they said when he fell, it sounded like an earthquake. That's really loud. So get that written. I know I'm really excited being exaggerating here, but get that written and we'll go ahead and go to the next box. Next, there was a terrible silence inside the mountain. So nothing about it yet. Lucy stood still as stone. And I know you guys have learned about similes, so that's 2 similes in a row, like an earthquake and still as stone, for she knew what had happened. When Jimmy and little Bill brought him out of the tunnel, John Henry's blood ran red over the ground. So that's something I can visualize. His blood is running red on the ground. And if we looked back at that picture at the beginning, I noticed a lot of red in the picture. Did you guys see that? If we sneak back here, did you see all this red down here and this red on the drill? I don't know if that was foreshadowing, but I noticed it. Good job getting that chart filled out with me, fourth graders. You're doing a great job. Next, but his hand still clutched one of his mighty hammers. Okay, so his heart burst. He fell to the ground. He's still holding his hammer, guys. Is that kind of crazy to you? It's that important to him that his hammer is still in his hand? I feel like that's a big deal. So he dies, and he doesn't let go of that hammer. Wow. pretty crazy. So to me, that makes him stand out as something that is extraordinary. And the last thing that stuck out to Mrs. Lawson, let's look back. He goes, "I've beat them," he gasped. "Now I'm dying." There are not a lot of things that people would die for. So I feel like the fact that the last thing that he's thinking about and that he's willing to die for is to beat this machine to help people, that's huge. So the last words that he ever said, some of them were, "I did it. Like, I did this." So I think that that stuck out to me. He's extraordinary because he gave his all, guys. He did so much that his heart burst to help out these people. So I think that just shows that he is a good man. You did it, guys. We figured out why John Henry is a good man and how he's extraordinary. He is awesome. So now let's look back. We're going to compare John Henry's vision of his friend's future with what actually happens, because the author tells us what actually happens to his friends. Did what he did in the challenge make any difference? So let's look back. Man, I'm sorry, I put so many slides in here. So it says down here, soon the steam drill did take over the work of the steel driving men. So I'm going to give you a second. Try reading this little piece on your own and see if you can come up with the answer here. Did what John Henry did make any difference? So I know you guys took the time to read that. Great job. And hopefully you figured out that, yes, he did know that those machines were going to take over the jobs of his friends. But the one thing he wasn't right about was his friends didn't lose their dignity, right? They were still proud of who they were, because while they were working, they did have to leave their families. But while they were working, they were singing about John Henry and all the things that John Henry did for them. So they still had pride in John Henry and themselves while they were working. So what he did, it did make a difference. So that is cool that he was able to make a difference. Now it's your turn, fourth graders. You're going to go look back on the page we read today, and you're going to figure out, how does Lucy feel about John Henry's death? You're going to go to that page and you're going to highlight the details from the text that support your answer. So make sure there's two pieces to this. You're going to type out or write your answer, and then you're going to go highlight your answer in the text, because we're really focusing on going back and supporting our answers with evidence. You guys did such a good job today, fourth graders. Have an amazing rest of your day. Bye.